It was a quiet afternoon when I first noticed something strange happening next door. It was just an ordinary day, but it felt like the calm before the storm. The wind was still, the sun shining brightly through the trees, and I was tending to my garden, enjoying the peace of my suburban neighborhood. But then, something caught my eye. The car, a sleek black sedan, rolled up the driveway with a speed I hadn't seen before. My neighbor's husband, Daniel, was behind the wheel normally. He would be accompanied by his wife, Anna, and their young daughter, Ellie. They were always a tight-knit family, always out and about together. But this time, it was just Daniel. I stood there, staring at the car as he parked in the driveway. My curiosity piqued. I hadn't seen him for a few days. And when he stepped out of the car, there was something different about him. His face was unusually serious, and his usual confident stride seemed slower, almost hesitant. I watched him walk up the porch steps and into the house. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't until later that evening that I truly understood what had happened. I was sitting on my porch, enjoying the evening breeze, when I heard the sound of muffled voices coming from next door. It was Anna. Her voice was louder now, and she was clearly upset. The words I could make out didn't make sense. She was yelling at Daniel. Her voice filled with a mix of confusion and disbelief. I couldn't hear everything, but the few words I did catch were enough to leave me stunned. Anna was asking Daniel where their daughter was, and why he was home, alone. My heart began to race. What was going on? Why was Daniel back without his family? Was something wrong? I stayed frozen in place, not wanting to intrude, but the more I listened, the more questions I had. I couldn't help myself. I quietly stood up, and I made my way to the edge of the fence, trying to get a better view through the slats. That's when I saw it. Daniel was standing in the doorway, his hands trembling as he tried to explain something to Anna. Anna's expression changed from one of confusion to shock. Her face went pale, and she staggered back as if she had been slapped. I watched her stumble back into the house, her hands covering her mouth, as if she was in disbelief. What could he have said that would make her react like that? I couldn't take it anymore. My curiosity got the best of me. I quietly made my way to the back of the house and peeked around the corner. That's when I saw something that left me speechless. Daniel was standing alone in the front yard, and he looked as if he was preparing to speak. But instead of speaking to Anna, he was talking to himself. He seemed like a man who was struggling to keep it together. His hands were shaking as he fumbled with his keys, and he stared blankly at the ground. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Something was terribly wrong, and I was beginning to fear the worst. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of something bigger than I could understand then. A few hours later, I overheard Daniel and Anna talking again this time. I could hear more clearly. Anna was crying now, her voice filled with desperation. She kept asking Daniel what had happened, why they had to leave so suddenly, and what he wasn't telling her. Daniel finally broke down, and what he said left me in shock. He confessed that they had to leave because of a situation that had spiraled out of control. Apparently, Anna's estranged family members had come into town, and things had gotten dangerous. Daniel had been forced to make a difficult decision. He had to leave Anna and Ellie behind for their safety. He didn't go into much detail, but I could hear the heartbreak in his voice as he explained the choice he had made. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't just a simple family drama. This was something much darker, something that had put them all in harm's way. The tension was thick in the air as Anna listened, her eyes filled with a mix of betrayal and concern. How could Daniel have made such a decision without consulting her? Why hadn't he told her sooner? As I stood there, my mind was racing. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of danger they were in. What had Daniel been hiding from Anna all this time? Why had he kept her in the dark? I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping over me. I had never seen Anna like this before. She was always the strong one, the one who had it all together. But now, she seemed shattered. I wanted to go over and comfort her, but I knew this was a situation I couldn't involve myself in. As the night wore on, I saw Anna retreat into the house, her face a mixture of sadness and anger. Daniel was left standing outside, alone, his face filled with regret. I wanted to go over, to ask him what had happened, but I knew this was something they needed to work out between themselves. I couldn't interfere. The next few days were tense. I could feel the strain in the air as I went about my daily routine. Anna and Daniel barely spoke to each other, and when they did, it was through clenched teeth. There was a distance between them now, a space that hadn't been there before. I couldn't help but feel like things would never be the same. I kept to myself, but my thoughts were constantly on them. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. What was so dangerous that Daniel had to make such a drastic choice? What had he really been hiding? And most importantly, what was going to happen to their family now? It wasn't until a week later that I finally got an answer. I was sitting outside on my porch, watching the sunset, when I saw Daniel walking up the street, looking more composed than I had seen him in days. He looked like a man who had been through hell and back, but had come out the other side as he passed by my house. He stopped for a moment, and I could see the weight of everything that had happened on his face. He gave me a small nod, acknowledging my presence. Before continuing down the road, I couldn't help but wonder if he had found some peace, or if he was still carrying the burden of the secret he had kept from Anna. As the days passed, I continued to watch from a distance, but the tension between Anna and Daniel remained. Their relationship had been changed forever, and it was clear that the trust they had once shared was now shattered. The secrets, the lies, and the dangerous decisions had left scars that would take a long time to heal, and as for me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I had been a witness to something I never expected to see, and it left me questioning the things I thought I knew about the people around me. The line between love and betrayal, trust and deception, had blurred in a way I never could have imagined. Now, every time I see Daniel or Anna, I'm reminded of that night, the night that changed everything for them. I can't help but wonder if they'll ever be able to repair the damage, or if their family will never be the same again. As time passed, the silence between Anna and Daniel grew heavier. The house that was once filled with laughter, love, and the sound of their daughter running around, now seemed eerily quiet. I couldn't help but wonder how long they could continue like this. How long could they hide behind the walls they had built between each other? One afternoon, I was out in my garden again, trying to distract myself from the growing tension. That was when I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. Anna was standing at the edge of her porch, looking down the street, as if she were waiting for someone. Her eyes were red, and her face was pale. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. For a brief moment, our eyes met. I could see the pain in hers, and she quickly looked away, as though she didn't want me to see it. But it was too late. I could tell she was struggling, trying to hold everything together. I knew I had to do something, even if it was just offering a word of comfort. I made my way over to her house, carefully approaching her from the side so that I wouldn't intrude. I knocked on the door, and after a few moments, she opened it, her face softening slightly when she saw me. "Hi," I said gently. "Is everything okay?" Anna hesitated for a moment before stepping aside and letting me in. "Come on in," she said in a voice that was almost a whisper bass. I walked inside. I noticed the heavy silence that lingered in the air. The house felt empty, even though I knew Anna and Daniel were still living there. It was as if the walls themselves could feel the tension. We sat down in the living room, and Anna looked at me, her eyes filled with so much unsaid emotion. "I don't know what to do anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know if I can trust him again." I could tell she was at her breaking point. The weight of the situation had taken its toll on her, and it was clear that the hurt was more than just about the secrets Daniel had kept from her. It was about the foundation of their entire relationship being shattered, leaving her unsure of who Daniel really was. "I understand," I said softly. "This isn't easy. You've been through so much already." She looked at me, her eyes searching for reassurance. "He says he did it to protect us. But how could he protect us by keeping this from me? How could he make that choice without talking to me first?" I didn't have an answer to that question. It was a question that only Daniel could answer, but I knew that his actions had already torn apart their trust. And that wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. "You have every right to feel this way," I told her. "What he did, it's not just something you can forget. But you have to decide what you need in order to heal. What do you need to move forward?" Anna wiped away a tear, shaking her head slightly. "I don't even know what I need anymore. I just know I can't keep living like this." We sat there for a few more moments, in silence, both of us knowing that this wasn't going to be something that could be fixed easily. It wasn't just about finding out the truth. It was about rebuilding the trust that had been lost. The days that followed were a blur of conversations between Anna and Daniel, each one more emotionally charged than the last. It was clear that Daniel was trying to make amends, but no matter how many apologies he offered, the damage had been done. Anna was struggling to come to terms with the fact that the man she loved had kept such a dangerous secret from her. One evening, I saw Daniel pacing back and forth in his front yard, his face a mix of frustration and desperation. He was talking to himself again, as though he were trying to figure out how to fix everything, but nothing he did seemed to make things right. The distance between him and Anna was growing every day. And I could see it in the way they avoided eye contact. The way they no longer shared the same space in the house. It was clear that they were at a crossroads, and neither of them knew which path to take. Would they ever be able to repair what had been broken? Or would this be the beginning of the end for their marriage? I didn't have the answers, and I wasn't sure anyone did, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to have to give. The weight of their struggles was becoming too much for either of them to carry alone one night. A few weeks later, as I was sitting on my porch, I saw Anna and Daniel walking down the street together. They weren't holding hands, but they were walking side by side. And for the first time in weeks, I saw a flicker of hope in Anna's eyes. It wasn't much, but it was something. They were talking, and although I couldn't hear their words, it seemed like they were trying to work through their issues. I watched them for a moment before they disappeared from sight, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, they were starting to find their way back to each other, but deep down, I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. The scars of their past would always be there, lingering in the background, reminding them of the trust they had once shared and lost. But as I sat there, watching the sunset, I couldn't help but believe that if they were willing to work through the pain, they might just have a chance. The following weeks were filled with quiet conversations, small moments of healing, and a slow but steady effort from both Daniel and Anna to rebuild their relationship. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy. But it was a start. I still see them from time to time, walking down the street together, talking and laughing. They've come a long way since that fateful night when everything changed. The scars may still be there, but they've learned to live with them. And for now, that's enough. As for me, I've learned something important through all of this. Sometimes, the hardest things we go through lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the people we love. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair, but with patience, honesty, and a willingness to forgive, it's possible to heal. I don't know what the future holds for Daniel, Anna, and their family, but I do know this. Their story is far from over, and the journey they've begun may just be the most important one they've ever taken.